All right, so let's do a different video today. This was requested by a commenter in a last week. I think it might have been on. I don't remember what video it was, but they asked to essentially do a tape collecting video talking about how to get started, the setup that I have, all around just talking about tape collecting. So I was like, you know what? That sounds like a really fun video. Let's do it. Stuff has been feeling a little bit stale lately in terms of my YouTube channel. So let's make some new content. So I started collecting tapes, recollecting tapes, I should say, about 4 years ago now. I think what really got me into tape collecting were just my friends. That's essentially how it happened. It wasn't anything that I thought to myself, like, man, I really want to start buying tapes again. No, it was definitely they were doing it. And I just, followed the crowd of what I started to see on Instagram as well. The first tape that I bought again was the Black Dahlia Murder Verminous. They came out with their new album, and I noticed that Night Shift Merch had a cassette tape also for sale, and I thought that was interesting because I didn't think that people still used cassettes. But there was this revival going on in the death metal scene where, I think even just the metal scene as a whole, where tapes were being reissued again, and people were pressing them. And it obviously boomed during COVID. I feel like it just got huge, and that's when I really got into it. So I bought that tape though just for show. Like, it was just, I'm gonna put this on a shelf with my other metal memorabilia. I'm not gonna open it. I don't have anything to play it on. I just think it's cool. It's nostalgic. And I did the same with a couple of $20 spin releases that came out around that time as well. And then when I started to make friends through YouTube and through Instagram within the vinyl community, who were also starting to buy cassette tapes, or who still had a massive cassette tape collection from back in the day, they still heavily used them and they still tried to hunt and collect them. Just seeing those collections and talking through that essentially is what made me want to do it again. The cassette tape is the first physical format that I ever had as a child. Vinyl records were pretty much dead, but I did have them. Like, my parents had a very large vinyl record collection. They had a turntable. I remember using it. I remember finding certain records when I was a child and putting them on the turntable and playing them. But cassettes were essentially the very first format of music media that I was able to collect myself, and that I had myself. So there's that nostalgia aspect to it for that reason. Obviously, CDs came along and they took over, and I had a huge CD collection as well. But the cassette tapes were one of those formats that, since it was the first one that I ever really remember collecting, it always kind of just has always been my favorite for that reason. I love vinyl records. I wish I could buy them like daily and just buy hundreds of them. But the whole vinyl record collecting space has gotten a little crazy in terms of cost, and being able to find them. I kind of wish it would go back to the days of where you could walk into a record store and get certain records for like $2, $3, $4, but I think those days are long gone. And the tapes were like that when I first started collecting. I could go into a record store, they had a wall of tapes. I would find, for example, I would find did I not pull it? I didn't pull it. I found a Sepultura. Here we go. So I found a Sepultura tape. I didn't buy it, but I found it at a record store, and it was for $5. It was Chaos AD. I had already Arise. This is from my childhood. So this is one of the first tapes I ever had in my collection. And I was gonna get it. It was only $5, but my issue with buying used tapes are, I don't know how they sound. I don't know what condition they're in. I mean, yeah, you can see like the tape itself looks fine, but that doesn't mean it plays fine. And so I didn't buy it. So used tapes are a little bit of a harder thing for me to buy because of that aspect. Because unfortunately, the thing with tapes are they don't last forever. The ribbon and all of that like deteriorates, and the sound starts to fade. So depending on how you treat them, how long you've had them, how often you've played them, those are kind of the issues with it. But I have several tapes here that kind of disproves that as well. I guess it just really it depends on the situation. That they're older than me and they still sound incredible. They still work perfectly fine. So, yeah, but I used to walk into record stores and see tapes all the time and they'd be super cheap, but now it's not like that anymore. The revival has made tape costs a little bit expensive again. Well, I mean, not too expensive. It's still the more economical media format that you can buy sometimes. So there are certain people and labels that charge the same as tapes for CDs, which I think is just freaking ridiculous. In my mind, the CD is always going to remain the superior physical media format in regards to sound quality and overall longevity. So, but these have gone down in price too. Like I used to buy CDs for like 25, 30 bucks a pop, brand new. That's obviously gone down, but these are starting to boom again too. But when I see a label that is reissuing or issuing an album and they have a vinyl tape CD, when I see the tape and the CD is the same cost, I'm kind of just like, I'm going to buy the CD because I understand the overall, like I said, longevity of it and stuff like that. So in my eyes, I don't like spending more than $10 on a cassette tape. I will, obviously break that rule from time to time if it's like $1 more. Because when you include shipping, you're almost paying 20 bucks a pop for a tape regardless. So that's my rule of thumb of buying tapes. However, there's been a few exceptions to that where I've been looking for an old school death metal tape that is essentially out of print. Nobody's reissued it, and somebody has a really, really like very VG plus or near mint copy, and they're selling it for like 20 to 30 bucks. I've pulled the trigger on those a couple of times, and that's just simply for a collecting purpose, not necessarily to play all the time because I probably already owned it on a CD or vinyl. So I do make those exceptions. It just depends on how much of a diehard collector you want to be. I consider myself a moderate tape collector. I got really into it for a while. For about 2 years there, I was super into it, and that was the only format that I was buying, and I was searching out and seeking. I've stopped that a lot because I got really into collecting CDs again and vinyl, and it gets expensive when you're trying to get all three formats. But now I'm kind of back into it because I recently am unemployed. So buying records, vinyl records, is kind of not the economical solution here. And if I'm able to get it on a tape at this moment, since it's the cheaper option, that's what I've been doing. But historically, in the past, I've always picked vinyl records as my first choice because as much as I love the tape, and I said it's pretty much my favorite format, the vinyl record, I just love having the larger artwork aspect to it, and just there's always just I don't know, vinyl records, man, they are my weakness, and I wish I could buy them again. All these new releases are coming out, and I'm just like getting the tapes, and I'm like, I'm hoping someday I can go back and get the records for these. But to segue back, now I've kind of went off on a tangent there for tapes. So when I was younger, obviously tapes were the first physical media format that I collected. When my parents retired and moved down to Florida and sold our childhood home, my dad had quite a bit of a handful of cassette tapes from his collection that he still had that he gave to me. And that is essentially, these are probably some of my favorite ones in my collection for that reason. And they are very old and they still work completely fine. They still sound perfectly because he treated them well. So for example, I've got this Led Zeppelin tape here, Led Zeppelin 1, that is, I'm assuming an original US press. I have never actually looked in to see what pressing this is. I'm assuming it's original because my dad would buy things as they were released. And it is still in pretty much mint condition. It's got a little bit of yellowing because it's a white tape. And also the way that he had these stored and in our house, it was on this case that was on a wall, and it was just held the cassette tape, and these were packed away somewhere else. So he wrote the names on the outside of the tape so he would know what the tape was, but I don't plan on selling this, so I didn't care about that. And then it's interesting how the J cards have changed. It's just simply the cover and then the tracks on the spine, and then nothing on the other side. But as you can see, it's in very good condition. Like, there's no yellowing on the paper, nothing. So, and then it's the old Norelco case, the black backing, which has got like the rough texture to it. So I have several of these tapes, and these are some of my favorite tapes in the collection. So I figured I'd show them off today. So we've got this Led Zeppelin one here, and then I pulled this one because I thought it was funny because it had the price sticker on it from when my dad first bought it. Coda, which was $4 even. Not sure what this record store is. I tried to look it up. It looks like it's not there anymore, but I'm assuming it was somewhere in Chicago because that's where we're from. And again, in perfect condition. This one has a little bit more yellowing and stuff. And it looks like there's a hole punch through it. So I don't know if this was some sort of a promo or something. I don't know what that is, but this one also has a little bit more detail to the J card because this came out later in the time frame. This came out in 82. Wow, I just realized how old this was. But yeah, so these classic tapes, man, these are some of my favorite ones, and they still sound perfect. No fade-ins, no fade-outs, nothing. So those are some. And then I also pulled one of the first tapes I ever bought myself was Pink Floyd's The Division Bell. And it's interesting because this came out in the 90s. 94 is when this came out. So I was about 10, 11 years old. Probably either got it for Christmas or something. Probably got it for Christmas. I probably didn't buy it myself. But this was a blue tape. So that was something you didn't see very often. I think, so I always remember that. But this sounds perfect still. And I played the fuck out of this. This is like my favorite Pink Floyd album. And the J card was real cool. I'm totally nerding out right here, but it was a fold out J card of all of the lyrics and all the pictures. And look how it's still in pristine condition. Like I took care of my tapes. And there's so many YouTubers out there that have videos that show off their tape collections that they've had since they were younger. And it's the same thing. Like, they all took really good care of their tapes. They all look in great condition. So I pulled this one for that reason to show. I thought it was interesting that it was blue. But I mean, I've got several other older ones. I've got another Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. This one definitely has a lot more of grime on the tape. And again, there's my dad's writing. And then the J card is very yellowed, but it still sounds phenomenal. So don't judge off of what the tape looks like. You got to hear what it sounds like to understand the condition it's in. Like, yeah, collector will definitely price this down because it's a lot of dirty and grime. But the overall sound quality is what you really care about here. And I know a lot of people like to have the tape in pristine condition. It depends on what it is, but this one is probably the roughest one that I have in my collection that I inherited. But again, I got Pink Floyd Animals. I pretty much have every Pink Floyd. And then this is, again, another one of my favorite ones, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. So far. So yeah. And then, like I said, the old Sepultura. But I pulled off the ones that my dad gave me because these are the oldest tapes that I have in my collection. And they still sound perfectly fine. No issues at all. Again, in terms of overall, like, physical media quality, some of it is either good or very good, but for the most part, some of it's also pretty pristine and mint too. So the longevity of tapes really depends on how well you treat them. Now, a lot of people ask me, how do you know if a label's tape release is going to sound good? I don't. I can tell you what ones do sound good and what ones I've had issues with. So we'll get into that in just a second. I'll show you how I got started and where I was shopping for. The next thing is, like I said, for price, I don't like spending more than $10, but there are a few exceptions to the rule, and I pulled off one here to show you, and this is just a very small exception to the rule. Hell's Headbangers recently reissued the Corpse Grinder Cannibal Corpse tapes. These were $11.99, so this was the exception to the rule here, but there's an element to this where I understand why that price point is there, and that's because it's an all-over print tape as well as a very extensive J card that has every single lyric and all of the guts that you would get if you were to buy the CD or the vinyl record. So these things are a cost for how many panels you have and stuff like that. It costs extra to print, as well as having that all over print. And then they also did the premium of a colored Norelco case. So those things are what, varies the pricing of a cassette tape, and I understand that because I've looked into duplicating services and stuff like that, because I considered doing some releases up in the past, but I'm not going to do that because I don't have the money to do it. But so yeah, these Cannibal Corpse reissues, which I haven't shown on here, I'll do a whole video on these when I have the time, are like the exception to the rule. But when there's a new release, so 20 Bucks Bin, for example, their new releases are usually $9.99, and that's a really fair price point. International releases are pricey, not in regards to the actual tape cost, but the shipping, so also keep that in mind. So I love collecting tapes. I don't understand the hate that I get, or that other people get, not just me. I'm speaking for other people as well. I see regularly in the comments of like, why are you collecting tapes, blah, 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 what a shitty format, they don't last forever. And my retaliation to that is CDs and vinyls don't last forever either. And yeah, CDs probably will last a lot longer, but I've had more issues with CDs and vinyl records in the last like 4 years since I've started collecting tapes again than I have with cassette tapes. Out of the like 300 cassette tapes that I currently have in my collection, I think there's been about 3 that I've gotten that had terrible sound quality, that were awful. And it was just a duplicating thing at the factory. Like, it had nothing to do with the label. It happened in 3. And one of them was the Gatecreeper release from Closed Casket that came out a couple of years ago. I'm blanking on the name of it now. One side played perfectly fine, but the other side had a fade in and fade out. The song would be loud, and then it would get really, really quiet, and then it would come back. And it did that through the whole entire side. And it was annoying. But it was a tape that the songs repeated the same on one side. So on both sides, I should say. So it didn't really matter. I didn't need that B side that didn't work. So I let that go. But I've gotten tapes from other labels. I'm trying to think of what the latest one was. It probably was Earache. It might have been my yeah, it definitely was Earache. It was probably my Wormrot tape that I got a couple of years ago when Hiss came out on tape. That one, same exact thing. The A side worked totally fine. The B side had that fade in, fade out, or it would, like the first song, it would get really quiet and muffled and muddled, and then it would come back and be very vibrant, but then it would only be in one speaker. So it was very strange. I have gotten muddy sounding tapes where the sound clarity is not there, but it was also a grimy, filthy, old school sounding, demo sounding death metal tape. So I wasn't really going for the sound quality there. I wasn't going for that audiophile experience. So it just depends on what type of audiophile experience you want to have. If you have like thousands of dollars worth of stereo equipment, which obviously I do not, and you want it to sound like absolute perfection, then in that case, yeah, definitely play a CD. Like, the CD is going to give you the overall best sound quality. But if you just, want the music, you just want to listen to it, you don't really have that audiophile aspect to it, then yeah, get the tape. Like, there's no harm in that. I've listened to several of my tapes probably hundreds of times over the years, and they still sound fine. I've never had any tape break, ribbon breaking, which now that I say that, it'll probably happen. And we'll get to my tape deck at the end of the video. So stay tuned. If that's what you want to see set up and understand what tape decks to buy, we'll get to that. But the pros and cons are not equal, I would say, in my experience. I've gotten CDs that come damaged more than I have tapes. In an example, I didn't pull one because I replaced the case, but the teeth will be busted out. The CD would be jostling all over the place and essentially got scratched to shit, and then the case was completely destroyed. Now, that's a shipping fiasco, but that's also a packaging thing that I've also dealt with too when moving in my CDs and stuff, and I probably didn't package them correctly. But I've had CDs for a long time, and depending on how you treat them, if you scratch this, that's it. Like, they don't play it. It's the same exact issue with tapes. If the tape is faded out, if it's been through the ringer, it won't play. And the same exact issue with your vinyl records. It really just depends on how you treat your media. That's how you get the longevity out of it. If you're not cleaning your records regularly, if you're you know, not handling it properly, you're not storing it properly, it's not going to last. And it's the same exact thing for CDs and tapes. So don't let anybody bully you into thinking that buying tapes doesn't make sense. It really depends on what you want and what you want in your collection and how you want to spend your money. So don't let anybody bully you into that. So, yeah, vinyl records now. I've had more issues with vinyl records than I have ever in tapes. And I've been collecting records a lot longer than I have tapes again. I've gotten more records come warped and unplayable than I ever have a tape. And that's infuriating because those are much more expensive. And I've gotten really expensive audiophile records from that are like analog productions. If you're an audiophile, that are like $60 a piece and they've come warped. And I got lucky and I can play it, but you see it doing the dance on the turntable, and that's not good for your needle and the overall record quality either. So that shit really grinds my gears when I get stuff like that, or when they press a vinyl record and they put it in a crappy paper sleeve, because you can get paper scuffing and all of that shit. And again, you're putting more money into this, and these pressing plants and these labels are cheaping out. And I get it. I understand why they do it, because they're trying to get a return on investment and they're trying to go the cheaper route and whatever else. But those things are what make collecting vinyl records a pain in the ass, are those things. So it goes across the board of every physical media format. There are pros and cons to everything. But for the tape collecting, I'm going to be 1,000% honest. I have not had nearly as many issues with tapes as I have with CDs and records. CDs definitely comes in second place. CDs, I've gotten really shitty sounding CDs before. Like, people, I don't know if they were CDRs and just lied or what, but they are. And I know you can call out, or just the overall packaging is awful. Earache. So, yeah, I've gone off on a tangent, but that's the overall main criticism I've been getting lately. It's kind of weird. I would actually take that criticism over some of the shit that I get on my channel. But I've seen it on others. It's not just me. I'm talking for other people as well. So I love collecting tapes. So where to get started? This is going to be a longer video. I probably should have mentioned. So where to get started? Somebody asked, where can they get started? So let me throw up a couple of websites that I buy tapes from. To be honest with you, the label that is releasing the album is where you want to go. You want to do that. Like, a lot of times you can just look at that. So let me pull up a browser. Let me get my... There we go. Okay, so most labels, if not all, will press tapes now. Century Media is the exception. They don't. And if they do, somebody tell me where, because I still have yet to find where. Get my there. So first things first, one of the best labels / distro to buy from is Headsplit Records. I've talked about them 1,000 times on here, but not only are they their own label where they press their own tapes and they release their own tapes, they also do CDs, but they also do distro items, and it'll look like this. It'll be a post like this, and then distro items, and then you go over here and you choose what you want. I have that on CD, but that would be fun to have on tape. So anyway, that master as well. But again, here's some good price points. Like $10, that's what I would hope you would spend on a tape. And then Headsplit doesn't rip you off with shipping. Shipping should not be more than $5. Unless you're doing Ground Advantage, then that's like $6. But like Media Mail is $4. So if they're jacking up the shipping, it's because they're trying to get a return on investment, I'm sure. So I cannot stand when people charge more than $6 for shipping for just one tape. It's like, come on. It's not that expensive to ship. But again, if they're trying to get money back on materials for shipping and stuff like that, then that's why they do it. So there's that too. But they also sell shirts and flags. But yeah, Headsplit is a good place to look for their releases, because they release awesome shit. But also because, like I said, they carry distro items as well from other labels and other labels for the most part. So there will be a picture, and then over here, what's still available. So follow Headsplit Records on Instagram. I think he's also on Facebook. and he'll post like, hey, I got some new distro items. Like, that's how I keep track of releases. Another website that I buy from frequently is called Dissonant Tapes. Dissonant Tapes releases their own releases, and they also have a huge, massive distro, one of the larger distros. If you click on all cassette tapes, and depending on how you sort it, I usually do it new to old because I know like what he has on his site because I check it frequently. It'll post the new items or whatever. So he's got a bunch of Scumlord stuff in. Ooh, Scumlord's out in Canada, so it can be kind of a pain in the ass to get the stuff into the U.S. Nice. But he also does, that Sentient Horror is a really good album. God damn. I'm like a goddamn ADHD person, like, ooh, squirrel. So anyway, More to School, that's a good album. But yeah, he's got everything. So he's got Scumlord, he's got Darkness Shall Rise, this whatever MG is. Gorehouse Productions is another great label. But yeah, this is a massive distro here of just tons of death metal. And he also has it broken down by genre as well. I usually just do all tapes because I like to see everything in one view. A lot of times I don't really have a specific of what I'm looking for. $15. That's because it's Sarcophago INRI though. But yeah, ooh, that's a good Onslaught. Back on Black, $13. That's because it's a euro. Okay, so let me discuss what I'm saying. So Back on Black is a European label / distribution. So when you see prices that are a little bit pricier like this in distros, it's because they're trying to get their money back because they paid a little bit more to get it shipped into the U.S. So I kind of keep that in mind too while I'm buying. Is if I know if it's a European label or distro, then I keep that in mind. So then I will make the exception to that. So Back on Black is one of them. Avant-garde Music is another one. So that's why the Moonlight Sorcery is $15. So in this regard, I know that these CDs and stuff like that are super common and easy to come by. So I would just get the CD because it's the same price. But Dismember, FYI, Dismember just was reissued on Nuclear Blast and the tapes too, and they're a lot cheaper than these. But the Back on Black ones, I'm not too sure how they are. I've had varying opinions on Back on Black when it comes to vinyl records, so I don't necessarily buy the tapes. But they've had like all the Bathory and stuff. So there's tons of stuff on here. As you can see, it's death metal and black metal. Fairly good pricing on things. Again, the European stuff is a little bit pricier, and those are kind of the exceptions that I'll make. But here's here's a Headsplit release. So there you go, $10. So he's got everything. And like I said, you can go over here and you can select the genre if you don't want to, if you have a specific genre. So that's the second tape place that I buy from. Third one is a no-brainer. And depending on your feelings on J-Dog, I don't let that deter me or let anybody tell me otherwise, because I know a lot of people don't really care for his channel. Obviously, I'm a fan of him because he was on mine. But Hell's Headbangers is quite possibly one of the largest distros to buy from in regards to tapes, CDs, and vinyl, but tapes as a whole. Their tape collection is madness. I have almost always found something on here if I'm unable to find it anywhere else, and it's always for a great price. So as you can see, they have their own releases that they do, and they also distro out a ton of stuff. So you can manipulate this search function to what you want. This is just in alphabetical order, but yeah, always a good price. They also have a lot of the European distros on here. They even sell $20 spin releases for you people that like to think that never mind. Anyway, so here's some Darkness Shall Rise production, which is a European, I think, is that Darkness Shall Rise? Yeah, it is. European and like $9.99. Like Hell's Headbangers, their pricing a lot of times can't be beat. So Darkness Shall Rise is an awesome tape, European tape distro and label, and they put out all of those amazing box sets that I've shown off in the past, and they've been reissuing a lot of timeless classics. So definitely good, definitely an awesome place as well. But yeah, here's Hell's Headbangers. They also ship internationally. So those are three, and then finally the last like US one that I want to show you is NWN. So NWN also has an awesome tape distribution and tape release. Tons of stuff on here. They press their own, obviously, and they do have their own releases, but they also distribute several labels. I'll get past all of the Helio Press fundraising stuff. And as you can see, like here's a Leviathan, and some of these are pricier because again, they probably came from European labels, or they're pressings that are hard to find. He gets a lot of stuff like that in stock, but yeah, and everything is on sale right now. So if you want to buy from NWN, now is the time to do it because this sale is going to start to go away very soon. But he's got some like Gurgling Gore releases in here. He's got all these releases. He distros tons of stuff. The ones that don't have the markdowns. Oh, here we go. So here's the Darkness Shall Rise Productions box set of Moonblood, which is $160. Originally was $200. So somebody go snag that if you're a Moonblood fan. That's a good price. But yeah, he's got tons of tapes on here. This is another site that I go to. Well, here's the Emperor box set, $216. That's not bad. I paid more for mine. So yeah, another great place. A lot of black metal, but there's also a handful of good death metal selections in here too. Every once in a while, a couple thrash albums will pop up. He's been reissuing a lot of the old school heavy metal, obscure old school heavy metal stuff. Unfortunately, on vinyl. I was hoping the tapes would come out too, but he's been really focusing on doing vinyls lately. But yeah, I mean, here's the Beharit tapes. If you want some Beharit tapes, but yeah, NWN is another one. But also, to keep in mind, on that regard, because I see the Frozen Soul right here, labels like Corpse Gristle, that I've talked about 100 times on here, also has a distro. So it's his tapes as well as other people's tapes that he sells. There's that Caustic Phlegm, y'all. J-Dog just talked about this in a recent video. This is Evan from Chest Crushed, his other band. I showed this off 2 years ago when it came out because he sent me a couple copies. So I got it through Corpse Crystal. So hey, grab this, $7.99. If you don't want to buy the 7-inch, get the tape. It's really good. I agree with J-Dog on that. So yeah, he's got a ton of stuff. And so here's this Gutted Bleed for Us to Live. Gutted is really hard to get. It goes out of print really fast, so that pricing makes sense and definitely worthy of it. And let's just scroll down because that Waco Jesus cover is terrible. Here's Cryptworm again. This is probably from Extremely Rotten Productions, and that's why it's a little bit more expensive because it's an international seller, so they are a little bit more costly to get into the country. But here's a new Dying Fetus. So there's Relapse Records, Internal Bleeding tapes, tons of awesome tapes on here, and a lot that have sold out too. So yeah, Corpse Crystal is another great one. And then surprise, surprise, $20 Spin also is one of my favorite places to buy tapes from, not only for their releases, but because they do distro tapes from time to time as well. Right now they don't have any distro tapes on here, I don't think. Oh, there's one. Rod in Christ, and this one, Secretor. But most of them are just their releases. But $20 Spin presses great tapes. I've never had any issues from them. So just you have to go to a label's website and see what they have. Gurgling Gore is another one that I buy a lot from. He has his own releases and then also distro items, whether it be CDs, tapes, but he gets distro items in as well. And then last one I'm going to show, and then I'm going to move on to the setup, Iron Fortress Records, which I've talked about so many times on here now. He is essentially my new favorite tape buying website at the moment. He has decided to focus on getting those European distro tapes in. So Intuit Records, look at that, $8.99. The price point is so perfect. It's got the new Cryptworm in from Extremely Rotten. All of these Stygian Blackhand reissues and just tons of stuff on here. His distro is booming now. He's got his own releases as well as the distro. The distro there's so much good stuff on here. I want to go and buy so many things, but I can't. But I would love to. There's probably about 10 or 15 tapes in this distro that I would add to my collection right now, especially these Dusage or Dusage or however you say it tapes. There's some Hell's Headbangers tapes in here too. So yeah, he distros a lot of things. He also just posted on his story that he bought a tape collection and it's going to be going up on us. So, oh my God. So yeah, that's a good place to get started. So what I will do for anybody that's looking to get started or to buy tapes, I will put in the description all the links that I just showed just now, and where I buy from. But again, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for the new Necrot tape, Tin Crimes has it. A lot of these labels, that's just where you can go buy directly from. But I'll post some of my favorite distros in the comments, so that way you have a guide to go click on. So yeah, that's essentially the background of how I started tape collecting again. I do I do tape trading, and what that means is not traditional old school tape trading that you hear like Ken and those guys talk about on their channels, but like I'll buy multiple formats of a release. So for example, Asheron is a good example. I already own this on CD. So if somebody came in and said, "Hey Melanie, I really want that tape. Would you trade it for me?" We would go through and we discuss like a good trade option. No, I'm not going to trade this, for anybody asking, because I've wanted this for a while on tape. And just look at that. It's a beauty. It's a beauty. I'm not going to trade this tape. But anyway, so yeah, I love tape collecting. Don't let anybody tell you not to do it. The combatant comments I've gotten about it, I always think to myself, like, dude, I've had those same issues with records and CDs. More so records. CDs are probably the one format that are pretty bulletproof, don't have a whole lot of issues around, and I still enjoy collecting. But again, these are starting to get priced a little bit pricey too. So if the tape is the cheapest option, that's when I decide to buy it. So if somebody asked, I'd be interested to know what you choose to buy over something. So if it's a new release and it's a band that I really, really love, so for example, Worm, I will buy the record. In the past, I've bought all three formats. I've stopped doing that. I will buy the record because I like the records. I like collecting records more. I don't know why. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. But now that I'm unemployed and a little bit more price conscious, I've just been buying tapes. So it just depends on how you want to spend your money. There's no right answer of what you should collect. Collect what you want to collect. Somebody will tell you otherwise, but you do what you want with your money. Like I said, I've had several tapes, and like I said, I've shown off so many tapes that are like over 30 years old. They still play fine. It just depends on how well you treat them and the type of tape deck that you have. So let's get to that. Okay, so we're doing a hands video again. So here is my tape deck. It is a JVC TD-W209 double cassette deck. This is from the 90s, I think 97, 90, either between 94 and 97 was when these were first released. This particular model right here that I have on display was bought through a thrift store in Orlando, Florida for $20. I found it on eBay. They restored it back to life because I think it was non-working. And I took a chance and I bought it because they had 100% rating on eBay with thousands and thousands of reviews. And I checked a lot of the past purchases, and a lot of them were cassette decks, and people were very happy with them. So I bought it $20 about 4 years ago. This was top of the line tape deck back in the day, and that's why. And the reason why I know that is because I remember either my dad or my brother, I can't remember, had it. It was top of the line. I remember it being very expensive back then. So that's why I bought it, because I just knew that it was a good one. Also, a lot of my other friends that are in tape collecting, I'll have the same exact tape deck from back then. Like, it's the original one that they've had their whole life. So I have this one, and then I have another one that's packed away. I'm not going to get it out because it's in a box and it's packed away and it's in a closet, and I did not want to take it out, but it's from my father. When they retired and they moved, he gave me his tape deck. It is an older model, an older tape deck. It's not fully powered. It's just all buttons and stuff. I can't remember. I feel like it was a Sony. It was a Pioneer. It was a Pioneer tape deck. I'll find a picture of it and I'll put it on the screen. That one still works perfectly, and that's from when I was a kid. I remember playing with it as a kid, and it still works completely fine. He took really good care of his electronics, and he gave it to me, so I have that on standby. Now, this is the route that I went for tape collecting and for tape setup. I wanted something that I knew was reliable, that was good, that was built to last, and I looked for it, and back then when I bought it, it was super cheap because nobody was buying tapes or doing anything back then. Now, if you look, you're going to pay at least 80 bucks for this. People are starting to get their money out of it now because tapes are back in. So a lot of people are buying those little handheld, like Walkman style tape players, and they're just feeding it directly into their speakers. That's an okay solution too. I don't know how they work. They have some that are like $200 now. Like some new companies are making those handheld tape players, and they're like 200 bucks. And I don't understand why. I would never buy one. But if you want to choose to do that, you can. But this is what I have. And for my setup, and I've done a video on this in the past, this is a 1970s stereo cabinet that I got from my grandparents after they passed away. I have my turntable and my tape deck through a receiver fed into here. And it just goes, I can switch back and forth between the two. That is all inside here, and I don't feel like opening it up. And then these little bookshelf speakers are just so that I can feed my phone and stream music. That's the only reason why I have those there. But yeah, this is my setup. It's not like a $15,000 setup. It still works perfectly fine. It's in a very small office room, so I don't need something super spectacular. It's not like I have a whole entire house or basement that is feeding through. And yeah, this is the oldest thing I have. So that's my setup. It still sounds phenomenal. So let's see here. Let's pull something that I know I'm not going to get in trouble for. Here's the new Cemetery Urn tape from Hill's Headbangers. So there. See, it works totally fine. I don't know how loud my speakers are going to be. Oh, God. How loud is it going to be? Not loud? Maybe I had it playing. Oh, loud. Loud. Yeah, I mean, sounds good. Yep, sounds totally good. So, I don't want to get in trouble because I have been. So, there's been this one person claiming to be the owner of the music and copyright striking my videos, and I've been contesting them and winning, but it's a pain in the ass because eventually I'm going to start losing and YouTube's going to get rid of my channel. So, by the way, great album, check it out. So, that's essentially my setup, what I bought, why I bought it. Again, I just go eBay hunting, go to your local thrift store, make sure it's been play tested. Sometimes you can't always get that guarantee, which is why I chose to shop online. But there are consumers now that are making these brand new. They run for about $100 and up. I chose not to go that route. And I've also heard bad things, like they don't last as long or there's troubles with them. So just read reviews, really do your research on what you're buying. But I got lucky with this one, and it's been my baby. I've had no issues with it. So that's all I had today, you guys. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want me to cover in terms of tape collecting in other websites, and I can probably do a part 2 of this video. So that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one.